So I'm going to make a fairly large batch of vegetables. So I'm going to use maybe 2 of these. In other words, there's about 10 strips I'm going to use. The bacon fat, and cook it slow, like I have it on 6. I might even lower it till 5, because if you do it too high heat, parts of it will burn to a crisp, parts of it won't be rendered into fat yet. So the onion, you know, you don't have to dice it up too finely. You can do it fairly coarse and cook it for a slightly longer time, but again at low heat, so it doesn't burn, it caramelizes. That's what's left after 5 strips of bacon. I think that's all I'm going to use. I'm going to use oil instead of only bacon. The bacon looks like that at the end too. I tried to render as much of the fat part as possible. So let's start, well, season the the onion with salt and pepper. This is before I stir it in. And then you can start cutting up your peppers, but don't do the heat too high. Do it around, well, half heat, so it caramelizes instead of burning. I cut the peppers into these type of slices here, like that. Quite a bit of it, so that and that. I didn't putz with these. I'm going to cut these separately later. So that's the pepper. I'm going to cook it separately from the onion. I'll tell you why later. The onions are starting to be ready. They're caramelizing, and the tomato I cut like that. I don't think I'm going to use 7. I'm going to use about 5 or 6. I cut it like that. First half it, then slice it like that, and I'm going to slice each of those in half. So while the onions were sauteing, I cut up all 7 tomatoes. It's a pretty large batch. And believe it or not, I'm going to make some more bacon. You can use oil. I like the taste of bacon. So that's about 9 strips in all. The bacon, when you do at least 5 strips, flip it off on low heat and flip it often. I transferred it temporarily, the bacon, to here to cool off, and then I put it into plastic. After I caramelized the onion, I put, so as not to waste dishes, I put the caramelized onion where the bacon was before. I didn't have the patience to keep slicing this while I was busy with the onions and the other stuff, so I'm just going to save this for use later. Try to do everything fast. This is the second batch of bacon. It's almost ready. I'm going to take it and put it on top of the onions to cool off. I'm going to add the peppers first into the bacon, maybe a little bit of olive oil. And then add, once I take the bacon off the top, I'm going to add this onion back into, with the peppers. Season the peppers separately each time. And then I'm going to add the red pepper, the red pepper on top of the sauteed peppers and onions. And I'll tell you, well, I'm going to tell you, I turn the heat off and mix it and cook it for about 1.5 minutes. I might not turn the heat off totally, but certainly not high heat. So this is what I mean to minimize dishes. I'm letting the bacon cool off, the second batch of bacon. There's the fat from it. I'm adding the peppers into that now. So on a heat of 6, seasoning with pepper and salt, and I added a touch of oil so that there's good coverage. And I may add a little bit of this stuff instead of just salt later. I took the second batch of bacon off because it was cool. There's all the bacon. And I'm going to add, when this is close to being fully done, I'm going to add this to it. And then, like I said, the red pepper for about 1.5 minutes on low heat or no heat. Stir it in, but let it cook a while, like 1.5 minutes. the more I'm going to add when I add the tomatoes and chili peppers just to spice it up a bit because it's not hot red pepper. And this is not Hungarian, but I add a bit of thyme, like maybe for the big batch I'm making, maybe a tablespoon, sort of a slightly more than level tablespoon. Just gives it a nice taste. I decided not to use as many tomatoes as I originally thought, so I'm going to leave this aside, use that. And I add a little bit of, you have a choice of adding sugar, or I'm going to cheat add some ketchup, which has sugar in it, because you want a little bit of sugar when you're cooking. So this is coming along, it's slowly wilting, not caramelizing, but it's sort of giving up all its moisture before I add the onions. So here's all the bacon I used, a fair amount, 9 strips, cooled off, which I'm going to use later. There's the onions still resting, it's caramelized. I'm going to add in this, then the what do you call it, red pepper. Cook it a short time. Sorry, paprika, not red pepper. And then to stop the paprika from burning, to stop the potential for searing it and giving it a bad taste, like a sour, not a sour taste, but a bitter taste, I add the tomatoes, and that cuts the cooking of the paprika suddenly, which is what you want. Stir this often enough so no parts burn. I added the chili pepper now because adding it raw at the end doesn't bring out the taste and the hotness of it. So while this is cooking, while the pepper's cooking, I added the chili pepper flakes. This is almost ready. It's, a lot of the moisture is out of it. Of course, while you're cooking, you should drink a little bit of booze, like wine. I don't have any now. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. And the garlic I'm going to add to the once the tomato is added. If you do have fresh garlic, you can add it as part of cooking the onions, but don't burn them. And then, like I said, I'm going to add the onions on top of all this to reheat the onions. Bring the whole thing up to temperature to add. It'll add the what I was calling pepper, red pepper, to cook the paprika for 90 seconds. So now I've added back the onions on top, and just before I'm going to stir everything in all together. I may give it a taste, just to see if there's enough salt already, or not enough. And then the paprika, the paprika, and then the tomatoes. I added the thyme now right before putting in the paprika, and that's because the thyme will soak in the fats, like the bacon lard and the oil, so it sort of soaks into it rather than just stay dry and just dry. And I'm just about to add the paprika, so the paprika I have to pay full attention to all the time. I can't start videotaping. Because I made such a large batch, I didn't remove the heat entirely. I left it on at 5. Stirred it a lot so it cooks evenly. And then I added the paprika. The paprika was added. I stirred it around a lot. Then I ended up using all the tomatoes. I put a bit of Vegeta in and ketchup. Vegeta for salt instead of just salt. Ketchup instead of just sugar. And now I'm going to cover this to keep the moisture in, so let the tomato, all the juices come out. So there's the covering. Because it's a big batch, the paprika I used 2 tablespoons, not heaping, not level, sort of slightly heaping, but you don't want to overdo it. It's not focusing. Come on, fucking focus. Okay, now it's focused. So I'm just gonna let that cook for as long as it takes the tomato to just sort of melt in, retaining the juices, and then I'll cook off any juice with the lid off if I have to. Yeah, so I lowered the heat to 5, so I could, even though it's a non-stick pan, it sounded like it was sticking, so I gave it a stir, a good stir. Do that once in a while as you cook it, and you don't have to cook it on high heat. Just keep the moisture and let the tomato kind of go to mush. I don't know, it sounds unappetizing, but that's what you want to make it like a blend. These tomatoes should have been riper, but anyway, it should turn out good taste-wise. It smelled really good before I put when the peppers were ready, especially. So it's starting to turn into kind of a sauce, so I keep it covered. And I stir it once in a while, you know, medium heat, maybe even a little bit lower, 4.5. I think these type of tomatoes would taste better than these, but I got so many of them fairly cheap that I use this. And I'm just gonna cook it to try to get as much tomato taste out of it as possible. So last entry, so I turned the heat down to 4. That's on a scale of 10 on this induction oven. This is the last entry, so the actual preparation time for, you know, assembling the stuff, washing it, cutting everything up, cooking things kind of separately, you know, the bacon, the pepper, the onion. There's about maybe 5 tablespoons of bacon fat and all. That's a lot. You use oil if you prefer. Anyway, this is the last entry, so it's about an hour to prepare from start to finish, and then additional cooking time like now. So this is the final entry. This is a cooking. I set the temperature down to 4. There's a lot of juice, so I took the lid off. I'm going to boil some of the juice off. The total preparation time from start to finish, in other words, selecting all, you know, assembling your ingredients, washing what's necessary, cutting things up individually, in some cases cooking things individually, because I made a big batch. Normally I wouldn't set aside the cooked components and then assemble them together, but I had to, so it's a good hour of preparation for a big batch like this. I used 2 tablespoons of paprika, between lumpy and flat, so just slightly lumpy for taste, and then it's going to cook a good hour because these tomatoes were not that ripe. So I'll make some notes and send videos and or stills and or notes. I mean notes for sure. So this is the final entry.